Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you as always from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in a snowless, still, Bergen County, New Jersey. This is Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast brought to you by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. We appreciate their sponsorship as always. This is episode number 102 on the Spanish style Ciento Dos. So if you're following on the SAP feature of your broadcasting of choice, we welcome you. You can send us your questions at any time to mypbshow.com, mypbshow@gmail.com, or you can DM us at any time. We have been very active in the comment section on our Instagram page. You can also get to us there. You have a plethora of options to try to get to you. Get to us. You can find us. And when you are on the Bamboozle Project getting your gear, and there are rumors that there is a hooded sweatshirt coming out. Did I hear that correctly?
Buddy. Yes, there is.
There is. You can use promo code MYPB to save yourself not 10, not 20, but a full 25% off, not one item, your entire order. So you can go there and use that promo code. We appreciate you listening today. You can listen to us on Spotify or iTunes or YouTube and watch the video feed if you choose to do that. But I remind you, we have voices for behind the mic, not in front of the camera. And as we learned here in the studio before we went live about 5 minutes ago, some of us, including myself, do not have voices for the camera, like singing voices.
Well, I think you have a singing voice.
You were here before, right?
Yeah,
you heard it.
That was marvelous.
Okay. Well, that will be the end of that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Probably won't happen again.
You're like the male version of Celine Dion.
Well, I was going to say, since the song, and Pat's over there laughing in the corners, the song that was Maroon 5, I would rather go with the Adam Levine reference.
Okay.
If you really...
You're the bro version of Adam Levine.
Okay, I'll take it. Nicest thing you've ever said about me there, young man.
Absolutely.
All right, the New York Rangers. Let's start here because we're going to be very NFL heavy today with a lot going on, obviously, football-wise. So let's start with the Rangers. So we're on last week. They only played 2 games. You know, they played on Thursday night at home versus Boston, and Boston is, I think, clearly the best team in the NHL in the regular season. Now, whether that translates to success up in Beantown in the postseason, where they've struggled in previous years, no one knows. But to date this season, in the 2022-2023 season, Boston has been the best team. And I looked at last Thursday for this team as a test. And there were certain things in this game you didn't like. There was a lot you didn't like. You could sit there and find some positives in the game. They got a lot of shots on goal. Swayman, who was in goal for Boston that night, played really well. Sometimes you get beat by a hot goalie. I do think, and I hate to say this, and I also don't really want to make this conclusion on one game because it's hard to do that, but I do think there is a little bit of distance between who the Rangers are and who the Boston Bruins are. Now, the way that the NHL playoff matrix works in the NHL is they can only meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. So if you're telling me that I can't really play the Boston Bruins, well, I guess if the Rangers were the wild card, they would, but it's unlikely at this point. So if the only way that they can play the Boston Bruins is in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'll roll my dice with whoever I got to play in the Eastern Conference Finals. But there were some things in that game that were a little bit disappointing. Last night, on the other hand, they played the Florida Panthers at home. Now, I don't want to get into with the Florida Panthers, why did they fire Andrew Brunette last year? Because they've been really a train wreck since. They brought in Paul Maurice, who is the typical example of what the terminology that they use in the NHL is a retread coach, right? A guy who's been in a bunch of places, or in his case, Winnipeg, lastly, and just comes back. Like, I don't understand Florida's vision. I don't follow them well enough, nor do I really care, to be honest with you. But that was a game last night you had to win, and you do. Mika Zibanejad had 2 goals last night. Igor Shesterkin, you, as a big-time hockey fan, should check out a YouTube clip because it doesn't happen often. Yeah. Igor Shesterkin, who plays what position, Doug?
I believe he plays the goalie position.
You're correct. He almost scored a goal, actually, last night. He had an empty net. He took a shot at it, and it looked at first like it was going to go in and then kind of went a little bit wide to the right of the goal mouth. But it was a good game for the Rangers. They played well. And this now leads up to the Rangers having 2 games left until the All-Star break, which is this weekend. And the Rangers will play up in Toronto tomorrow night against a very good Maple Leafs team. And the Maple Leafs were in here at the end of December. The Rangers beat them, but it was a very competitive game. And then they will play Vegas at home on Friday night. So once you get through these next 2 games, you get to the All-Star break. However, the All-Star break in the NHL is not really like if I'm using a mathematical term, the exact halfway part of the season. The Rangers have already played more than 41 games. It's an 82-game regular season. So we're at the halfway part of the season, and I think now is really the time where you sit down and you say to yourself, all right, let's really evaluate, because what we all want to do as fans, and you do this in every sport, right? The Rangers, let's look this year, right? They opened the season on opening night. I think it was October 11th, if I'm not mistaken. They were home against Tampa, right? And they blew Tampa out of the building. Oh my God, the Rangers are on fire. They're going to win the cup this year. Who's going to stop them? They're going 82-0. No, that's one game. You don't have a large enough sample size. When you get to where you are now in the season, where you've played, again, a little over half the games, you can start to kind of see what you have. Now, last night in watching the game in the first period, the Rangers scored twice, Fox and Zibanejad. And at the end of the first period, I noticed the stat that I didn't even know about, and I don't know why I didn't know this, is that Fox and Panarin now each have 37 assists, which is incredible. If you have one player at this part of the season with 37 assists, I would be shocked and thrilled. But the fact you have two is kind of remarkable, especially for a defenseman in Adam Fox. It just shows you how special he is. So the question now is, I think, for the Rangers, are the pieces there to make a deep cup run? Really, the regular season is all an 82-game marathon to set you up for a 2-month sprint/marathon, if you will. I guess you can view it either way, to say, get me out of here. Let me be the last man standing of the 16 teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That is the one holding Lord Stanley Cup at the end of the season. So, I think it's hard to argue with this team that they do not have the pieces to make a deep cup run. If you look at and you say, okay, goaltending is always, I've always said this, the most important position in the NHL. A team that wins the Stanley Cup, you will never see them win the Stanley Cup with a mediocre goalie. It does not happen. The Rangers have arguably the best goalie in the NHL. He definitely was the best goalie last year in the NHL. Is he again this year? He probably is not at the moment, but he's capable of winning a playoff series. So you have that there. Defensively, you have Adam Fox, as I just mentioned, 37 assists on the year, won the Norris Trophy a couple years back. Jacob Trouba's play has gotten better in the last couple weeks. You still have guys like Lindgren there as well. You're happy with that. Offensively, Artemi Panarin is still there. Mika Zibanejad is still producing. Chris Kreider has kind of taken a step back, as we all kind of predicted he would, but he's still effective. He's still there. Kakko has elevated his game a little bit this year and gotten better. Vincent Trocheck, I have to say, I didn't love the signing. If you listen to us over the summer, he's done really well filling in for Ryan Strome. I mean, he really has. I can't really sit here and tell you it's been a downfall. So Chris Drury is going to have to answer some questions now. And that is, what do you do at the trade deadline? Last year, Chris Drury was really active in a very, very similar situation where the Rangers were second or third in the Metro. And what did he do a year ago? He brought in Andrew Kopp. He brought in Frank Vetrano. And and those were two big additions to bring in. So you have to think Chris Drury's track record being in this situation is to make moves and try to solidify his team for a deeper Stanley Cup run. He's going to do something here. The question, of course, is what? And the other thing here, you have to remember, when you are, and the Rangers will be buyers in the trade market. When you're a buyer, you cannot give away a key piece, or else what's the point of buying? So you're going to have to convince whatever seller you're going after to take draft picks or minor league players or whatever. And normally when that happens, you get the situation you had last year with Vetrano and Kopp, where you're basically taking on rental players. Vetrano's now out in Anaheim and Kopp's up in Detroit. So, you have to accept the fact that the players you're going to bring in are probably not the Panarins or the Zibanejads that's going to be here a while. Don't get too used to him and don't go out and buy his jersey.
So what did we lose in those situations?
Last year?
Yeah. Did we lose like big time picks?
Not at all.
All right, good.
But you hope that they can do it. Now, the Rangers are rumored to be interested in this guy Meyer in San Jose, which I think would be a really good fit. But the problem is I don't know how they fit a player like that under their cap long term. The Rangers, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess however you want to look at it, are probably going to have to be buyers of rentals, right? You're not going to be a long-term buyer or someone you're going to bring in. You don't have the cap room. So before we get to the NFL, because this is what someone had wrote in. What is the second half prediction for the Rangers? All right, let's use the crystal ball and try and figure this out. Now, here's what you don't like. There's two things I'm going to tell you. And again, I'm not here to just feed you positive stuff. I'm here to look at things objectively and honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
The Rangers have the second toughest schedule remaining in the entire NHL. So the schedule is going to be hard, but the Rangers are built well. They can beat any team on any given night. So I don't know that I put a ton of stock in that. However, I have to factor that in. The other thing I don't like is the division is really good. Why the New Jersey Devils have not dropped off yet is beyond me. I keep waiting for it to happen. And I think we're at a point here where you almost have to think that they're just not going to. Because the Devils now have also built themselves a cushion that if they do have a drop-off, they're probably still going to make the playoffs, right? So that's one thing is the division. Now, the Islanders, the last couple of weeks have dropped off. They lost again last night. So you're left in this division with the Carolina Hurricanes, the Devils, the Rangers, the Capitals, and the Penguins. 5 really good teams that probably all could make the playoffs. So the division is really good. And remember, the way the NHL seeding works now, you can get 5 teams from a division in if the 5th team takes the last wild card, which could very well happen here in this division and looks like it's going to. So second half of the season, I would expect that the Rangers are going to finish second or third in the Metro. I don't think that they're going to catch Carolina or New Jersey, whichever team is all the way up there. Again, the schedule is hard. Being second or third in the Metro is not a bad place to be. That's exactly where the Rangers were last year. They were second in the Metro and went to within 2 games of getting to the Stanley Cup final. So here's my predictions for the second half of the season. They will finish second in the Metro. Okay. They're going to pass someone. The Devils will drop off a little bit, but not to the point where they're falling out of the picture. They're going to finish second or third in the Metro. They're going to, I think, and this would be a lot of fun, and we can ask Paul Farrington when he's with us in a minute. So I think it is lining up. And again, this can change a million times. So please do not go out and bet the mortgage on this, but this would be a really fun scenario to be around the tri-state area if the Rangers and Devils played in the first round, because it would be amazing. And I will say this, that if that were to happen, all the pressure in the world would be on the Rangers. The Devils would be almost playing with house money. You wouldn't even expect it to be here, and they don't, right? So it would be a scary matchup for Ranger fans. But I think you have to look at it as the Rangers. I think you're going to finish second or third in the Metro, and it's going to be a dogfight because the Metro division, the Metro Conference, right? You win your first round series, whoever you play, man, whoever you play next is going to be difficult too. So I think, the another key here is you want Igor to be rested for the playoffs. That's also super important. So the play of Halak, there was a clip that went up yesterday of us talking about how good Halak has been. That is critical because if Yaroslav Halak is not going to win the games that Igor Shesterkin is not going to play in, it's going to be a problem. There's not a lot of room for error with points here in division. So we shall see. But it will be interesting. The NHL, I don't know why. I figured this out this morning. So the Rangers play Friday night at home versus Vegas. And then it's the All-Star game. And then they don't play for another week and a half. They don't play till Monday, the following Monday. They're off for a full 10 days.
Is there any other deadlines? Are there any trade deadlines or anything that comes up after or during the All-Star break?
Yes, it will be the end of February. I believe normally it's February 28th. And if it's not February 28th, give or take a couple days, it's somewhere in there. But it'll be interesting to see what Chris Drury does. And those people out there that sit here and say, well, I don't think Chris Drury is going to do anything. Listen, 10 months ago or 11 months ago, he was in this exact same situation and you saw that he was active. Why would he turn around and not be active? And Frank Vetrano and Andrew Kopp were key pieces of why they went deeper in the playoffs in the last spring. So he's going to be active again. It's a matter of what you go out and do. We're going to unfortunately be given the Patrick Kane name now all over and over and over, which again, I've said this, I think there was a clip of this at some point earlier in the season. I'm fine with it, but again, it all depends on what you're giving up. I don't want to it would be typical New York Rangers to give up a key young piece to get a player to play here for 6 weeks and then never come back.
And it's good to get like a good player, but like they haven't been in the system. They're just like literally coming just for playoffs. Like, I feel like it would shake things up a little too much.
This will be a very interesting team to watch in not only the playoffs when we get there, but also the rest of the regular season and the trade deadline. It really will. And so it is very hard to predict, but we got a thing that people wanted me to give you my second half prediction. And that's where I think they're going to finish second or third in the Metro. Let's shift gears to football because I think there's a lot going on in football. Am I right about that?
A little. There's a couple things, nothing really.
A couple things going on. We're going to bring in our favorite football guest. That is Paul Farrington of the Paul Farrington Show. There he is. How are you, Paul?
Good. How you guys doing?
I think you're still on mute.
You
there we go. No, you're good. We got you now. I got you. We got you. Well, welcome back. Happy New Year. For you, you have not been here in 6 weeks, which I feel like, this football season, you're almost living here under the table with us. So
I know. I wanted to be on last week, but I got caught up in an unfortunate football game.
And a long drive back. So people know, we did try to get you last week, and you were a fan. You drove, right? You drove. Is that correct? He drove out to Minnesota for the Giants game. Now, Paul is a Vikings fan. He doesn't hide it. So our executive producer, Pat, and I were talking before about how long of an 18-hour drive back that must have been for you.
Oh, it was. My dad and I talked a lot about the Vikings on that trip, and after that, it was we're done for. We need a week off or something like that.
There you go. Well, welcome back. All right, let's run through the games here. I wanted to start with this past week, and we'll run through each game, and I'll give you like a couple things with each game. So Jacksonville goes to Kansas City, right? Jacksonville a year ago, Urban Meyer does not last a year, right? He's fired by week 15 or whatever it was. The following year, a new coach with a lot of the same team gets to the divisional round in the playoffs. How awful of a look is this on Urban Meyer?
Well, he's obviously one of the best college coaches ever, but in terms of what he did last season, it looks horrible. Doug Peterson, he is also one of the best coaches in the league. So we know what he's capable of, Super Bowl winning head coach, but it's a pretty bad look for Urban. And when you hear all the stories too, he was kicking players, he wasn't flying back with the team. The more and more you dive into it, the worse and worse it sounds. And that's apparent now.
Not a pretty situation. So we'll get into Kansas City in a minute as they move forward. The Giants at Eagles. We could echo the same sentiment with Urban Meyer and the difference a coach makes. Joe Judge, following year, Brian Dable comes in here, wins a playoff game, on the road in Minnesota, as you know, and has a winning record with really the future being bright there. If you're the Giants and you saw Daniel Jones in probably his finest moment as a Giant up in Minnesota last weekend, would you go forward with Daniel Jones as your quarterback?
You have to. You can't. He's earned the right to have at least one more season if they tag him. What I would imagine happens with Daniel Jones is they give him a 3-year contract, probably Kirk Cousins money, which would land in the $35 million a year range. And that's a lot. Like any Giants fan who hears that will probably realize that that's a lot for Daniel Jones. But when you see the strides he made this season with Brian Dable, it's hard to argue against giving it to him. What's the better alternative?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you want to go out and trade for Derek Carr? I don't know that I love that idea either. I mean, there's not right. I mean, part of the problem here is there's not a lot of alternatives if you even want to seek an alternative. All right, the Sunday afternoon game. You and I. Now, I don't want to speak for you on this, but this is always the impression I get of you, Paul. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I've always found that you have a soft spot in your heart, like myself, for the Buffalo Bills. Like we usually pick them to win the Super Bowl in the summer when we don't know what's going on, and we want that fan base, the Bills Mafia, to do well. Am I right about the fact that maybe somewhere in your heart you like Buffalo a little bit?
No. I am a petty football fan. I am happy that the Bills fans are upset. As a Viking fan, I get crushed time and time again. When I was a 12-year-old boy, I was up in Buffalo, and I saw the Vikings lose to the Bills, and I had Bills Mafia people mocking me the whole way. I am thrilled with this playoff exit. Now I do pick them, though, because I enjoy watching Josh Allen. I think he's really good. I did have Cincinnati on Sunday.
All right. So here's my question for you about this. And I thought of this, and then I saw someone somewhere posting about it yesterday. Same idea. So now I'm not thinking that I'm as crazy as I am for what I'm about to say. Is the term I use here, because we're a Rangers podcast first, is I use the term window of opportunity with the Rangers. 5 to 7 years. We're now in year 2 or 3, right? So you're going to have Igor in his prime. You're going to have all these guys in your prime. When I look at the AFC and I see Cincinnati, who's younger, I see Kansas City, who's still dominant, is the window of opportunity for the Bills already closing?
I wouldn't say it's closing, but you have to say that it's one that won't be long it's one that's going to be difficult to get through, if that makes sense, because you do
Yes.
have Burrow, Allen, Allen's on the Bills, but Allen, Herbert. You're going to have Trevor Lawrence rising up right now. It's going to be a really difficult conference to win, and the division itself with Miami, those weapons and Tua next season, if he's able to stay healthy, they were right there for the division this season. I wouldn't say it's a closing window, but it's just you never know when you're going to have the opportunity in the NFL, especially to go to a conference championship game and not be on the road. And now we've seen back-to-back seasons where in the divisional round, the Bills have had an opportunity to either host or play at a neutral site in the AFC Championship, and they probably should have won each of the games. I know Cincinnati's a good team, but you got to take care of that game if you're at home. You just don't know how many more chances you're going to get. Could not agree more with you.
Yeah, and so I'll even say the same thing for Dallas. Right now, you're on probably the halfway part of Dak Prescott's career. You're in a division now where the Eagles have risen up, shot up to the top of the division. The Giants are only going to get better, right? They have $50 million in cap space to spend too. They have a lot of money to spend, even though some of it's probably going to Barkley and Jones, but you have a lot of money there to spend. If I'm Dallas, I thought, and I'm wrong because Jerry Jones came out and said this, I thought Jerry Jones was just going to go hire Sean Payton yesterday, right? I just figured he was going to be the knee-jerk reaction. There's a connection there in the past, but he's sticking with McCarthy. If I'm Dallas, has the window of opportunity there shut, or has it gotten just a lot smaller?
The window for Dallas is still open. That team, when you compare them with San Francisco, it's not that different. I think that those teams are both immensely talented. Them and Philly are probably the three most talented teams in the NFC. So coming into next season, they're going to have an opportunity again. They just, whenever the playoffs roll around, the past few seasons, they've choked. Really, that's what's happened. Dak Prescott. When you think about your quarterbacks, Jeff, where would you say Dak Prescott ranks? He's probably top 12 in the league, right?
Yeah, when he's healthy.
Yeah, so you have a top 12 quarterback. That defense was great on Sunday. It's just you got to show up for the big game, and I know they haven't done it for multiple seasons in a row, but I still think you're looking at one of the more talented rosters in the National Football League.
Yeah, the problem that they're going to have is the division, right? You're now playing the Eagles twice a year. You're playing the Giants twice a year. The Commanders were better than people thought. Remember, they won up in Philly on Monday night. So I wouldn't even, the Commanders are not a walkover either. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Cowboy fan by any means, but if I was one, this is getting to be a very, very repetitive script here.
Oh, it's the same story every season.
It really is at some point. And Ezekiel Elliott, I'm just talking from a fantasy numbers perspective, is not who he used to be. So something's got to change there.
Tony Pollard's the guy. Hopefully he's able to make a recovery, but
yes,
he's the guy.
He is the guy there. He should be the guy going forward. All right, so now shifting gears, we're down to the Final Four. We head to conference weekend this Sunday, which has the San Francisco 49ers traveling east to Philadelphia at 3 o'clock, and then a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, which is the Bengals at the Chiefs at 6:30 Eastern time. All right, so let's start in the NFC. San Francisco has not lost since October 23rd. Think about that. The last time San Francisco lost, you hadn't even worn that crazy Halloween costume you wore, right? Dougie Sticks over here hadn't gone out trick-or-treating in the town that he lives in, acting like a little kid because he wants Tootsie Rolls. So it's been that long since San Francisco has lost. And when I saw that they haven't lost since October 23rd, they completely have not gotten the attention they deserve. Because if any team hasn't lost in 3 months, they should be given a little bit more respect than what they're given. Now, going into Philadelphia, we all know, is the hardest place to play in the NFL. I wouldn't want to play there ever. No. You don't want to go to jail.
I wouldn't say hardest. I would say filthiest. Dirtiest. It's filthy Philadelphia.
It's an opinion. So you can.
Like what is the Seahawks have the loudest stadium? I wouldn't say hardest place to play. I would say dirtiest place to play.
Dirtiest.
Make sure they get a hotel that has water.
Okay. Yeah.
Could be most intimidating. It's an intimidating.
Most intimidating to play. And remember, when you talk about intimidating there, and that's a good point, you're bringing in a quarterback Brock Purdy, who probably has never played in any environment like what he's going into. So the line right now is the Eagles are giving 2.5, and it is trending upwards to 3 because it's at minus 115. So the money so far is going on the Eagles. Who do you like in this game?
I've liked Philadelphia all year out of the NFC. San Francisco's a great story. Purdy's been incredible. There's really no other way to say it. But this Eagles team, everyone talks about the depth of San Francisco, how they really do have Pro Bowlers across the board. But I think that this Philadelphia team is just as good. And Jalen Hurts, look, if he didn't miss those 2-3 weeks, he might have been the MVP this season. It's hard to pick against them, especially in Philly.
Yeah, I'm struggling, and we were talking about this here before, that I think the lines this weekend, both games are really hard to predict. Like sometimes you can get a feeling and you say, you like this or you like that. I look at them both. I'm like, man, I don't know what I want to do here. I would agree with you. It's hard to go against Philly at home. They've been the best team. I mean, the Brock Purdy story, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, has been a great story, but it's got to end at some point. And if he ends in Philadelphia playing in, I guess it's not going to be frigid there this weekend, which probably works to the 49ers' advantage. But if it ends there, I mean, it kind of would make sense, right? Like, so I'm with you on the Eagles if I had to pick. Dougie Sticks, what do you think?
Oh, it's going to be a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl.
Okay. Dougie likes the road teams. Getting to the second game. So this is where I'm not an expert gambler by any stretch of the imagination, but you don't touch this game right now because this spread is all based on Mahomes' injury, right?
Mhm.
The Bengals are giving 2 in Kansas City. If I knew Mahomes was healthy, I would be going with the Chiefs here. Also, my logic is, and again, logic doesn't always equate to being correct, but logic is there's no way in my mind that Kansas City is going to lose to Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game at home 2 years in a row. But we know how good the Bengals are. Who do you like on Sunday?
Well, my Super Bowl picks this year were Philly and the Bengals. That was my Super Bowl prediction. So I'm going to stick with it right now. Why pick against them, especially with this injury? Even if Mahomes was healthy, I just think the Bengals are a better team right now. They've won the past 3 matchups they've played, all by 3 points. Very close games. But now you're talking about an 85% Patrick Mahomes. I'd say that's an optimistic scenario. And I just don't want to pick against Joe Burrow. They've won 9 in a row too. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's an example here, and we see it every year in the NFL where it's a matter of when you get hot, right? It's when you're playing well that makes a huge difference, right?
I
And
think
where
this
you're going to
Bengals
be.
team last year, they were going through the motions, and you were mentioning Devils and Rangers. If the Devils get into the playoffs, this team's so young. I don't know if they'll understand the gravity of the situation. They're just playing loose, and they think they'll get back there for years to come. The Bengals now, after last year, I think that the difference is it's just as much talent, but now you're an experienced team who knows how to win these games. You're expected to win. A little bit more pressure, but also with that, the experience I think is gonna show through. And Burrow looks like someone who's right up there with Mahomes for best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he's been great. I mean, he's been nothing short of great. And sometimes when you play those teams, not to switch topics to the Rangers, Devils, but if they played in the playoffs, you don't want to go against a team that's playing loose. It's not a good fit. You don't ever want that. You don't want a team that doesn't care because they'll go out and take chances. And
Yeah.
when so all right. Last question before we let you go. Completely random, off-topic NFL question.
Perfect.
You ready?
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson is a soon-to-be free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Last week here, we were talking, where will he go? And I said, excuse me, that he has to. How could the Jets not go after Lamar Jackson? So then we looked up on a website because, these days you can bet on anything. You can bet on when Dougie's wife is going to give birth in the next couple of days. So if you want to bet on that, you can bet on that also. So there are odds out there as to where he's going to go. And lo and behold, the front runners at plus 200 to 250 are the New York Jets.
Yep.
Do you think the New York Jets should go and get Lamar Jackson next year?
We talk about this a lot on my show. One of my co-hosts, Andrew, is a big Jets fan, and he's willing to sell the farm for him. He said, as long as you don't touch Sauce and Garrett Wilson, anyone else is on the table. I think it might. If you're a Jets fan, you've gone through so much quarterback misery. It's been quarterback hell for what, 50 years now there. So I understand you should probably go get him, but I'd be very, very hesitant. Giving Lamar a 5-year, $200-something million contract, the whole point of this season for the Ravens, why they didn't go through, is he got hurt. That scares me a lot. And if you're going to put that much cap money into a guy that gets injured a lot, the quarterback market is ridiculous, and I really think only 2 or 3 guys deserve the money they're getting.
The only another reason, if I am the Jets, that I go get Lamar Jackson has nothing to do with what he does on the field. The New York Jets call me every year to sell me tickets, literally every year, because I bought tickets on Ticketmaster for an event for the Jets back in like 2007. So, their email marketing teams are good. They hold on to the list, right? I don't know what you're selling. You're not selling Sauce Gardner. Come out and see Sauce. Great player, right? But you're not really coming out to see a corner. So if I am the Jets, well, I'm getting Lamar Jackson knowing there's my selling point. That's what I'm selling people to finally buy the season tickets, right?
Yeah, I think it could wind up being a mistake. But if I were a Jets fan, I would want everything. I would want Lamar Jackson immediately on the roster. The team is good enough to win with him. Super Bowl, maybe not, but the only way you're getting out of the AFC right now is if you can put up points. And as good as their defense is, they just can't score. So I would go after him, but I would probably regret it.
Let me ask you guys this. Looking at it from a general manager's perspective, because everyone's got to be thinking Lamar gets hurt. Why would we pay all this money, right? Like, he has a track record of being hurt. Do you think that's going to negatively affect his payday? Or you think a team is going to come up with $200 million for 5 years?
There's probably a team that'll do it.
All right. So that's the next question. Besides the Jets, who else would do it?
Well, let me read to you the odds on what Vegas says. So the Jets are the favorite. The second most favorite team, which surprised me, is New Orleans Saints, which I mean, I guess.
No, I don't really see that.
Yeah, I don't love the fit at all. If I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm only going to New Orleans if they're blowing me away with a contract, right?
Yeah.
Why? I don't know why. Who am I going there to throw to? Kamara's not Kamara anymore either. So the third odds go to Baltimore. The fourth one is really interesting, and it's Miami, right? Because you have Tua.
Yeah,
but
he's always got
concussion. I'm pretty sure he'll be back.
Yeah. So when I look at this and I say to myself, okay, you have the Jets, and then I don't know why you would go to New Orleans. I don't think he's going back to Baltimore because it probably would have been done already, and there's kind of been some negotiating in the media that hasn't been favorable. So that's out of the table. And then I look at the Dolphins. I'm like, yeah, I could see it, but they have Tua, and it's weird that they're going to change things completely right now.
Yeah.
The Jets are the team. Vegas would tell you Lamar Jackson is going to end up on the Jets.
They
right?
are. I think Baltimore's too smart to pay him that contract, and the Jets are desperate enough to do it.
Yeah.
Because Baltimore went into the year, remember, and challenged Lamar to have a crazy year, saying this was a contract year.
Mm-hmm.
And he started out weeks 1 to 3 this year and was great. He was incredible. And then the injury started. So I think it's going to be hard for Baltimore now to just turn around and say, all right, you know what? With the year you had, here's your contract. It's not. I'm not saying it's the Jets' field to lose, but it makes the most sense.
Yeah, they just got to come up with a way not to
years?
push out all the money.
How many years, if you're a Jets fan, can it be Darnold, and then you have Wilson, and you have Mark Sanchez? I mean, you could go back.
But the difference,
years. They haven't. But name one other quarterback than Joe Namath, maybe Chad Pennington, in 60 years of a franchise. That's why they're going to do it.
But here's where Darnold, and I get your point, but here's where Darnold and Sanchez and Zach Wilson are different. They were drafted products, right? Here, you couldn't sell to the fans, come get season tickets year one, because Zach Wilson's probably not going to play. He's a rookie, right? Here is an immediate selling point. You're in New York. If I'm Lamar, I'm getting more endorsements here than anywhere on that list for sure. New York's the capital of that. I don't know how he. I mean, I don't want to say I don't know how he does it.
That's why they'll do it. Because
I think he's ending up with Jets. Yeah. And you mark my words that if Lamar Jackson is a New York Jet. Next year in the studio in week 1, my partner over here is going to be in a Lamar shirt. He's
yeah.
going to trade. He's
Every
going to
Jets
trade
fan will
his.
be.
He's going to trade his Giants helmet that he had going around here last week.
Every Jets
Because
fan
it's
will be. By week 8, they'll all have it off, waiting for him to recover from a sprained ankle, and then they'll be okay.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Remember with the Jets, right? You have Breece Hall, who had a great year until he got hurt. You have a young running back, and he's never really had all the years in Baltimore, Gus Edwards, Dobbins, whoever. He's never had a great running back where you got to respect the run game. And he's got, Garrett Wilson. He's got some young talent there.
That team is loaded. Outside quarterback position, they have a lot of talent.
It would make, and he's going to make a ton of money in endorsements playing in New York. You're not making that in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something
How do you get him? How do you get him without selling everybody?
No, he's a free agent.
I know that.
Oh.
So how do you get him without spending crazy money? Because that's on every single GM's mind is like, this dude always gets hurt.
If you can get him, how about this? Let me put it this way, because that's a very fair question. If you can get Lamar Jackson and get him in a deal where he doesn't do any damage to your cap or long-term signings down the road, you do it. I'm not telling you that you're writing a blank check and say, Lamar, do what you want. He doesn't deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's going to get a fair deal and nothing insane, and the Jets have the chance to get him with this roster, I don't understand why you're not getting Lamar Jackson.
Well, the Jets will have to give some stuff up too, I believe.
Is he restricted?
I think I'm pretty sure that there would be a trade involved here. I'll have to double check that.
Whatever it is, if he's going somewhere, Vegas thinks the Jets. What are you going to say last
Well,
point?
the next person besides Lamar is also talks Aaron Rodgers might be, and Tom Brady might be a Jet.
Okay. I wouldn't want Tom Brady in a million years if I was a Jet fan. And secondly, the other thing is, if you don't get Lamar Jackson or you don't get a quarterback, what are you selling to your fans? Mike White?
No, you didn't. What about Aaron Rodgers?
No, I'm not. I don't want Aaron Rodgers either. I don't need a prima
I don't blame you. I'm just saying those are the talks of the Jets is Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady.
Okay, Tom Brady is. Yeah.
If Lamar Jackson goes to New York, let's say, where do they fit into your hierarchy of AFC teams?
In the AFC, well, let's do their division first. I think they're not as good as Buffalo, but they're closer to being competitive.
They could beat Buffalo.
They could beat Buffalo, but if you told me there was a 1-game playoff between the two on a neutral site, I'm going Buffalo. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't be shocked if the Jets beat them. It also depends how healthy Lamar is, right? I mean, that's the whole caveat to this whole thing.
Yeah.
I would say they're competitive with Miami. Their defense is better. I thought Miami coach McDaniel down there had a really bad second half of the year. I think the Jets would be better than Miami. In the AFC, they are not better than Kansas City. They are not better than Cincinnati. They're probably better than the Chargers, right? They have a better defense. I think they're better coached. They're better than Pittsburgh, obviously, and they're better than Baltimore because Baltimore's not going to have Lamar.
Yep.
So
you're probably looking at the top 6, 7 team. You're looking at a playoff team for sure.
They're going to playoff teams. And, hey, you get in, play one game. Lamar goes wild. Defense plays well. Sauce locks down the other team's number 1 wide receiver. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. Paul, we thank you very much. We'll have you back for Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. And then we do our little, 5-month divorce. And we'll come back. And after our summer fling, we'll have you back.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. It's always fun.
Soon. That's Paul. Thanks, Paul. That's Paul Farrington with the Paul Farrington Show.
Nice. Always good to have Paul.
I tell you, man, these games this weekend, I struggle. If I had to make these picks right now, I'm going to take Philadelphia -2.5, and my reason is so stupid. My kids were talking last night that all I am rooting for now in the rest of the NFL season is that Philly doesn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I don't care which of the other 3 teams wins. I
hate them.
ABP, I told my kids last night, anyone but Philly. So I am going to take Philly this weekend for the sense that if I lose, I will be happy that Philly is out. It's almost like I am giving myself a mental insurance policy. I'm going to take Philly -2.5 at home. And I do think the Brock Purdy situation is going to be a challenging thing in Philly. So I'm taking Philly -2.5. The other game is all about the Mahomes injury. We're
Mhm.
taping this episode on a Tuesday morning where there's still 5 days left for Mahomes to get healthy.
Mm.
I think if Mahomes is healthy, okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to go against what a lot of people think, and I'm going to say that they're not losing for 2 years in a row at home to Cincinnati in an AFC Championship game if he's healthy.
Mhm.
However, if he's not healthy and he's limited in any capability, Cincinnati's winning the game. And Paul Farrington's Super Bowl will be right with Cincinnati Philly.
He's gonna play. He's just not gonna be able to run. He's gonna be at like 75%. He's not gonna be able to move. He's not gonna be mobile. He could barely walk. Like he was like hopping off the field. Like he could barely walk. But yeah, I definitely think Cincinnati's gonna win that. And then I hate Philadelphia, so
You're taking
I'm
so you're taking the
49
road team.
I'm
You're
taking
taking
both road teams. It's gonna be a Cincinnati 49ers Super Bowl. Heard it
which
here
I
first.
believe happened, if I am not mistaken, in 1988. I believe I was in third. Wait,
That's
89.
impressive.
89.
Impressive.
I'm gonna look that up real quick. I believe that was the Boomer Esiason Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Super Bowl in 1989, it was San Francisco, and they defeated the Bengals. I'm absolutely right. Super Bowl 23. I don't know why I remember that. I remember we had a Super Bowl party that night, though, and the 49ers won. So we'll see if we got a rematch. If I think right now, if you had out of these 4 teams, and we can all dislike Philly all you want, whatever of these 2 of the 4 we get in the Super Bowl should be a decent game, right? There's not any matchup here that's terrible where like you have a Cinderella story that could be playing a dominant team. Like the Super Bowl should be a decent game, whichever way it shakes out. That is it for us. We thank you for listening. We thank the Bamboozle Project as always. Check them out at their website, thebamboozleproject.com, conveniently across the screen right now. MYPB is the secret code there to get you 25% off. And Dougie Sticks, enjoy the rest of your week.
You too.
We'll see you next week, everyone. Enjoy the games.